that we need to do, and then trying to figure out a way that's going to be in the best interest of the county that we carry it out. So the first bullet that we see under capital needs is the jail. And we do know that we did pay to have a study done. And since we've had the study done, we have had the company that performed the study to come and give their report to the board. However, since then, we have not had an opportunity to really discuss, different options in which we would like to explore. I think one of the things they stated was they gave us what it would cost for a new jail versus what it would cost to repair the old jail. So at this time, I would like to open up the floor to any commissioners who have any comments or any thoughts about this results of the jail study and how you think it would be beneficial that we proceed. We do know that it's going to be very expensive. It's a very expensive and serious undertaking. However, we do know that there is a serious need. We've had issues with the jail for several years now, so we are going to have to make some decisions as relate to the jail. I think all of us have a packet in front of us. It's called the Vance County Detention Center. Do you have one as well, Mr. Kerr? Okay. Mr. Elliott and Ms. Bigelow. Okay, so we all have the Vance County Detention Center needs assessment. So at this time, if any commissioners, have any statements they would like to make, please feel free. The floor is open for comments.
Madam Chairwoman, can you put those numbers by you and then maybe get your reaction to them? Some things we've looked at as staff on this.
Yes, that's fine.
So as the Chairwoman mentioned, we do have we tried to do a recap of all the capital needs. We figured we really need to talk about the whole package and not just one particular project. So as you recall, Mosley did come in, you got a copy of the study in front of you. 3 scenarios. One, just the basic renovation, 5.3 million. The addition with renovation, 31.3 million. Then the new jail at 42.6 million. So Catherine has looked at some different financing scenarios, just what ifs, if you were to go down the road, probably on the 5.3 million. Currently got you have $12 million set aside in your capital reserve account, or you will have, I guess technically you do as of June 30th. The 5.3 million could be paid out of cash if you so chose. But when you get up to the jail addition at 31.3 or building a new detention center at 42.6, you're gonna have to look at financing. If you just did a pure finance on those 2 scenarios, I asked Catherine to check with some financing options in terms of interest rates and basically what that would equate to in terms of a tax rate increase. So she's got those numbers if you want to review those.
I wanted to look at it too, because based on Vance County fiscal policy, the one thing about tax supported debt, it said the ratio of tax supported debt service expenditures as a percent of total governmental fund expenditures shall not exceed 15% with a minimum aggregate 10-year tax supported principal payout of 50%. So that means basically we cannot have more than 8.625 million in debt.
But keep in mind, this is a Vance County Board of Commissioner policy.
Yes.
You could amend.
Mhm.
$8.6 million is not much debt on capital.
Right. But don't forget, we do have the water debt. I just kind of want to,
Oh, excuse me. You said that that's a debt that the commissioners made?
it's a Vance County fiscal policy. So this is after LGC policy. This is the Vance County policy.
So at some point in time, is there a date on that when those put into?
Yeah, how about that same thing? What's the date?
2018.
Just when we passed that policy 18, so.
It's our fiscal policies. Yes. ma'am. Mhm.
The LGC, Raleigh, the local government commission would have, that number would probably be a lot higher from their standard.
So anyway, so based on this policy, which is what my guideline is 8.625 million in debt, which is 15% of our budget of 57 million. So that is the debt that's allowed per y'all's policy. The new jail at 42,500,000 is an annual payment of $3,230,000, which equates to a 13 cents tax increase. The renovation of $32 million is an annual payment of 2.4 million, which equates to an 8 cents tax increase. That just for that payment alone. And it does meet all of the 10-year aggregate of 50%. So all that is fine according to your policy.
So that 8 million is that an annual debt service? Or is that
Yes.
total?
Annual debt service.
And
So
so
you
this would be
can
$3 million,
3.2 million of that
3.2 million.
total. And then our water district comes in there at some play, not at a higher percentage because it goes into an enterprise fund. But since we're still on that LGC plan to pay that debt, a percentage of that debt would count towards that as well.
So what if we did added $3.2 million in debt? Where would we be on that 8.5,
Roughly around 5
around 5 million total?
total.
All right, and we've got some debt. This is like this year, next year, we've got some debt that's coming off, is that right? And
Mhm.
then after that, our ratios get a little better, is that correct?
Yeah, it does, but the water is still the bigger thing, and that's with that long-term payout. All the smaller debt is still 7 to 10 years out.
Did you do those projections based on the next phase of the water that we're currently working on?
No, before.
I've had a discussion with Catherine on this, but I would think the water district and being a separate fund would be separate from the general fund. I could be wrong on that.
It is, it's totally separate. It's enterprise fund, but just a certain percentage of that because it's still, we're still on the debt plan with the LGC. We'd have to count a percent of it towards it.
Because technically all the costs within that water fund
Yeah.
are borne by the users and the revenues
Mhm.
come in and out of that fund.
But we still have to supplement
Yeah, we
it in
haven't
the
hit
budget.
break even yet. And
No, we still have to supplement it budget wise. So that's what we have to account for.
But what debts are we
Mike.
coming off of? What debts are you projecting that we?
We
gonna
paying.
have?
Just some vehicle debt and an ambulance.
How much is that total? Is that a big?
Ma'am.
How much is that total? Do you know?
It-
What's getting ready to come out? How much money do you,
Maybe 100,000.
maybe,
I mean, it's good for me budget wise.
I know budget, well, but
Yeah, and I mean, this is a bigger, a
Yeah.
bigger schematics of it.
I thought you want to say something about $1 million or something like that.
Didn't we have QSABs, those kind of things that
That was 101,000.
they were, okay, that's what's coming
But
up.
then don't forget our Eaton Johnson is still on there for the next 10 years. Well, 8 now, the big 5 million one.
And you said the 5.3 million, if we could pay that off, if we, and that's the renovate, right?
Mhm. That's the current renovation of what we need.
So we would, that's no extension. I was trying to find it in the package where.
That was just what they said on the side for the current jail, right? The 5 million.
So
Yeah.
that's with no
5.2
addition, just
renovate.
fixing up what we got? There's with no addition added, that just remodel the,
Correct.
what
And-
we have.
And right now, we do have, I put in our CIP and I can pass these around too, but this is our current CIP plan. And we have $8 million in our CIP that I already put in there to renovate the jail.
But there's no
Let me ask
dollars.
Just the commission, I mean,
You just-
manager, if we,
Ma'am, I'll make
if we,
copies.
if we decide to build a jail, we don't have a choice but to fix up the old one, right?
Well, it depends upon whether if you were to, if you build a brand new jail, then no. If you were to add on to the existing jail, if you build a brand new jail at 42.6, say $43 million, then you would basically vacate the existing jail. At the $31 million addition, that includes both, as I understand it, the addition and renovating the existing space in that jail.
So
Where there's no room to add on.
it has to be if they got a bill for 31 million.
Expansion option, I don't.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that means you have to buy land from the city. And the city ain't gonna give up the park.
That's not the part, no.
In the back of the park.
The whole bottom there, we'd have to fill in the cost. Of it tremendously.
So, I know.
But I think we would be amiss if we didn't bring the whole picture to y'all,
Yeah.
meaning that we will, I know a substation and an EMS station is a sensitive topic, but we are gonna need a building at some point
Yep.
in the next couple of years. You know, we have,
Building for the what, Catherine?
ma'am,
For the what? Building for what?
We're gonna need.
EMS.
EMS.
whether it's, you know, we have to have a main station before we build a substation and we want a substation and, you know, all these things. So I feel like it just needs to be a broader conversation, getting ready to go into budget in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, on the fire at EMS, I've been out there to visit that facility. I mean, they're literally on top of one another. And I asked the question, if EMS were to move out and have their own facility, could then fire use that facility in and of itself? And I guess maybe this has been looked at in the past by the county engineers and whatnot. And staff had told me the overall conclusion by the engineer was that they didn't think that it could be modified for the bay height needed for engines and whatnot. I was told one of the original concepts was possibly, and I know that this is probably pie in the sky based upon jail needs, but a fire, EMS and 911 facility separate and apart. But again, if you didn't have the jail needs, we could probably be talking about that kind of project, but the jail needs, the jail is overshadowing everything else capital wise.
Okay. There are a number of factors that are causing us to need a larger facility, average length of stay being a major thing. If we get the average length of stay out of the way, get that back to where it's normal, like most other jails, how much does that reduce the facility needs?
Well, obviously that then it influences the number of inmates. I mean, the consultant Mosley that came up with the average length of stay was based upon the historical, and then you had, they put in there the COVID considerations of people, and then also put in there I think one of the factors being that a lot of the cases are not going to trial, and they're not pleading out because they want to go to trial. And then that's because there's not a whole number of DAs and assistants, or the DA isn't a whole lot of assistants. We're not seeing a whole lot of cases go to trial. I do know the DA would like to address the board and has made a formal request to come before you on the September 5th meeting, just to talk about a lot of things. He really wants to couch it as his annual update. He hasn't done it in a long while. So he's on the agenda right now to appear before you.
That's the main thing there is, I think our length of stay is, I don't know, 32 days or something. I think it's less than 15 on average for the rest of the state. And that contributes a lot to the thing, to the police department.
I'm sorry.
So Scott, can I ask you this, according to what you see, what you know, and the finance, the state that the county is in, if you had 2 cents to put in it or the opinion, what would you see according to our budget? And I don't know, and I just want to, from our manager, since you overseeing it so far and you already talked, Kathy got to look like, what?
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, but I just want to know from the perspective, you all got the finance, we got an EMS. We got a lot that needs to be done. We got the capital, we got things that we got to pay for. I just want to hear from.
I mean, you don't, with a jail project, it's not something you want to put before the voters, because people are not going to want to vote a jail up. They're going to vote a jail down. The school package, they probably would vote up more than likely. And you wouldn't want to put that on not that you asked, put that on a GO bond referendum, because if they do vote it down, then you have to turn around, you have to do it eventually anyway, which would make them upset. One of the things you do have in your favor indirectly is the fact that you're doing a reevaluation January 1, 2024. And as that affects your fiscal year 24-25 budget, as you set the adjusted tax rate, that is a opportunity within setting that tax rate. Yes, you do have to publish the revenue neutral rate, which shows what the rate would be compared to what it is today based upon the new value of the base. But within that, you'd have the opportunity to do some version of what you have here, these 3 scenarios within that rate. Yes, it is a tax increase. More for some, less for others, and no change for some.
So we will have to raise taxes.
One one thing we asked for in this study was a look at a regional jail scenario. I don't see that in here anywhere.
I thought they addressed that when they came.
That's so too.
They just kind of dismissed it. We asked them to do a regional jail study and we got very little input on that.
I thought they said they'd had discussions with the adjoining counties and they didn't want to participate.
At this time,
I can follow up with Mosley if you'd like. I mean, just see if they want to follow up again, but
Family County don't.
I don't know if we have an answer for that right now.
Just build
Warren County big enough for it, and Roxbury too far. So,
Granville County under its current sheriff, my understanding there was some conversations where he might
with
have with the current sheriff.
who had the conversation?
I don't know who had these conversations, but my understanding there were conversations with him that there were some scenarios where he might have a conversation. Be more acceptable, talking about it.
Do they have the beds? See, they don't have the beds either.
I think they do have, I thought it was 90 or 100 additional
They've got room to
beds.
see when they
That's
built that. We were having I've been having conversations with the board commissioners over there for years about before they started building their jail. And they were amenable to the conversation, but then after they got their plan, they said, let us build our jail. And then we could come back and we can have a conversation about expanding or whatever after because they were at a point with the construction, they didn't want to go back. But the jail is built with mainframes, so they can add on fairly easily to the jail if they needed to. And so, and I believe it would be more efficient and at a greater, better cost.
Are you still gonna have debt costs to deal with? And I don't know if, obviously Granville County is not gonna take on that debt. I know in Pitt, we actually had excess jail space that we were able to lease to Beaufort temporarily while they renovated their jail. But we charged them for portion share of debt service, operational costs being the staff salaries, heating, cooling, all being fully loaded. In a long-term situation, it was not favorable to them. They're better off having their own facility.
Yeah, when Shelton was here, he ran some numbers on scenarios and the cost based on our current jail were something that could work out. Do we still have any of that information, Kathy?
I do,
That would, I mean, to me, we need to look at
but that's where I got this 8 million,
the what
in the capital.
Yeah.
Was
was,
to help from John's numbers when he said to fix up the jail to be able to maintain it.
okay. He also did some numbers as far as cost per diem, having them.
Oh, excuse me.
Somewhere else.
Yes, they're in my file somewhere. I
Okay,
don't throw it
all
away, but I don't
And
have.
those numbers, I mean, and at the time, it was favorable to Granville because to have our inmates rather than the federal inmates, because there's less obligation, less paperwork and stuff with ours than there are with federal inmates. So I just something to,
I'll reach
I
back.
just
out.
think we need $42 million is a big haul.
And on the average length of stay, looking back at the notes, they're saying that in North Carolina jails, it ranges between 15 to 24 days. And ours was 46 and a half, almost 47 days as the average length of stay.
Yeah, I think somewhere in
So
there.
it's
it says
double.
We were double the national average.
Or double the state average.
There were other factors too that had to be considered, in talking to the jail admin, one of the issues that they were gonna have is the staff did not want to work and, you remember that conversation, Ms. Dawson? They did not want to work in Granville County. We are short of staff now already in Vance County. Granville County is already short in staff as well. And then we having people that saying they're not gonna go to Granville County, and Granville counties would, I doubt very seriously, they want sole responsibility of taking care of our inmates. You know, so we would have to have individuals willing to commute probably from Vance and surrounding areas, being willing to go over there to work. That's gonna play a major part as well. And right now, we don't even have enough people to staff our own jail now, much less try to encourage people to go to every day to work in Granville County. And again, they have their own shortage, we have a shortage, and then that's going to be a major factor in having sufficient enough staff in which to be able to watch the inmates that we do have. You know, we do we have had this conversation with the district attorney about trying to get people into jails and get them into court quicker, but personally, in terms of the amount of people charged with murders, I hadn't seen a big turnover with people going to trial to handle these murder cases. So it looks like it's at a standstill. So personally, I don't see that in terms of staff, that staffing issue being corrected anytime soon. There has been, I haven't observed any positive steps towards getting the necessary staff that we need to even man the jail that we have now with a sufficient number of guards per inmate. So that plays a major part as well. When we're looking at talking about a regional jail. And again, like we've said in the past, most people have said no. They weren't interested in a regional jail. And like Ms. Dawson said, Warren County isn't big enough. Granville has said no previously. Politically, we don't know if this individual will be reelected sheriff if there will be a new sheriff appointed. But we, as a board, because of a lot of the things that have been happening in our own jail, we have to really look at this seriously and see what kind of resolutions we can do for ourselves before we start trying to pass the buck, so to say, over to Granville County to take care of what we need to take care of ourselves in our own county. And that's just my opinion.
Can we get the DA to come back in and give us an update of, as a whole, to tell us how things moving? Can we sit him on the?
Actually, I had a sit-down conversation with him about 2 weeks ago, and we have him scheduled to come before you September 5th at 6
Okay.
o'clock to provide a update from his office.
Okay,
I think it'd be really good to hear what he's got to say before we go steamrolling too fast. This is good information and good conversation.
I'll just save this for the next one as well, so we can continue this conversation.
Okay.
I would like, can I go?
Yeah.
I just say one thing, this has in terms of jail, I know Commissioner Brumman said he's been talking with folks in terms of jail and everything, but I think I've been having some conversation with some of the commissioners, and they see, there's some dialogue, they would like to sit and talk with us about a regional health department and everything, so they have an interest in another area, so it's just all areas have different needs and everything. And I think after they had the water damage that they had at the end of December last year, they're looking at maybe trying to do something else in terms of having some dialogue with us about, maybe looking at a regional health department. So, they have a concern with something else. We have a concern with jail. So, I don't know where the happy medium is going to be.
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to work with other counties.
Mhm.
Regionalization just makes sense. It's more efficient.
I'd also like,
But I think in terms of people that deal in law enforcement, when you talk about regionalization and everything, getting to court, what Sean and I've talked and everything in terms, does that get to be a costly thing in terms of getting them back and forth to jail to court and everything when you got a regional jail? Because that brings into other expenditures and things like that you have to consider. It's not like when we have a regional community college and people get themselves there, but the expense of transporting inmates wind up lying on our budget.
It does. Transport costs, the officers, vans. Yeah, it can add up as well.
But there's currently new legislation that allows a lot of it, other than the trial itself, to be remote now. Is that correct?
First appearances and that type of thing. Yes.
So
I know at one point, the sheriff was stating that he had had conversation with Representative Sossaman about, in terms of doing funding requests for the upcoming budget. Does you all?
Well, the
Okay.
jury's still out on the state budget. I really seriously doubt that there's going to be money in the state budget for a jail or EMS station. That's just my thought process, opinion, what do you want to call it? Water system, we might see something there possibly. You can tie that to economic development or something, but these are normally seen as county responsibilities that the county tax base and tax rate is supposed to take care of.
wasn't there one jail that was recently completed that got a contribution, from,
There could be. Yeah,
I think I saw that somewhere. That one had been built with additional funds.
But where you were from Pitt County
Yes, ma'am.
and down, in that area, aren't they building a jail down that area?
I'm not aware of anybody in the eastern part of the state around Pitt that is.
Okay. It's, I'm trying to think, cause I know I went down there, wasn't good. I thought it was in the Greenberg area. I know someone is building a jail and I was just wondering in terms of their funding.
Well, the sheriff's office is building an $18 million new administrative complex.
Mhm.
That may be what you've heard about.
So did they get the state, additional state funding or they raised taxes?
That's all. Well, it's being funded within the growth in the county's base without raising taxes.
And I think Chris did, he went somewhere to look at, it was a jail being built. Do you recall where that was that he went?
Top of it,
Where?
the top of it. That was like a $54 million facility or something like that.
Thought it was 64.
Yeah,
It
they're a little bit bigger than we are.
was way out of our price range.
Okay, so did they get any state funding to assist with,
I mean,
everything was based on an increase in taxes for them?
Oak County just built a jail and a school.
I know, yeah, it was one county, they got a lot of money, millions of dollars to build a new courthouse. Do you recall which county that was? Yeah, whole county, okay,
Where'd they get the money from?
the state,
Try to remember.
From where?
They got a grant, they put in.
state.
I have a question. Primarily for you and our chair lady, because you guys know more about the jail than I do. I'm looking at this report and the conclusions and recommendations. And they're very interesting. Which kind of imply some inefficiencies in the way we do things over there. That if we improve those, we might be able to get away with not having to do much except the maintenance things that I have to do. I'm looking at this. Implement an inmate classification plan.
What page?
That means that
What page?
the back end of this. That means that there is no classification inmate plan in the current jail. And that might provide some efficiencies. And then here's another one, improve sight lines. Another one is consolidate control rooms to provide for more efficient operations. Now, are these viable things that we could do?
Well,
That would then improve the situation over there and would make it so that if we just made the necessary maintenance improvements, we could extend the life of our jail, kick this can down the road for another 5 years or so. I mean, that's what I'm looking at.
I don't think how much money we put into this jail right now, it's gonna save
It's
it.
on the last page.
It's gonna save it.
Well,
And that
I'm
would-
trying to save it. I'm not trying to save this.
I'm trying to ask you a question. For the
Because
last,
what I'm looking at is, it looks like we need money, and we haven't discussed that yet in the capital plan for the Henry Dennis building. I don't know what that's all about. And the Eaton Johnson campus, I don't know what that's all about. And EMS, I know what that's about a little bit. So we have to look at this capital plan in total, not just in one piece of it, one segment of it. And when I look at the jail, and God knows we need a new jail, there's no question about that. But now the question gets to be with the money involved, unless we can get a grant or something. If I look at these conclusions and recommendations here, I'm looking at conclusions and recommendations, which brings about some immediate efficiencies in the jail that don't exist right now. And if we can implement, get those in place, in addition to what Dan mentioned earlier about average length of stay down, we might be able to get by a little bit longer than the urgency, I should say, doesn't appear to be as great if we do some of these recommendations. I don't know that because, as I said, our chair lady and Austin Yellum, I do, some of these efficiencies, it looks like to me, would greatly enhance our operation at the jail.
And it was Hyde County and they built it, the state built it after a hurricane.
Yes,
They helped.
and it's just like a Band-Aid. You put a Band-Aid on a sore, eventually it's gonna wear off.
Well, I know that.
That's the same situation with the jail, Archie. If you spend $1 million to redo the whole wiring system, you can't just put up a camera. You gotta put up a whole entire new system throughout that whole jail. That's one. For two, you have so much stuff that needs to be rebuilt and reconstruction. Some of that stuff have to be torn down completely and rebuilt up. Would it last for a little while? Of course.
So these
But-
recommendations wouldn't do us.
Let them finish.
So patching it up, it probably will help for a couple of years, that's true. But we're gonna be right back at the same situation, but we still not gonna have no beds. We still not gonna have enough room. That's the biggest situation. We don't have room. And when these folks stand in jail 6 months to 3, 4, 5 years, nobody that's coming out of jail, it creates issues. So how we gonna fix the bigger issues? We can put a Band-Aid on it, but it ain't gonna change the capacity of the major issue. And that's what we're looking at. If we gonna think about spending 31 million, why not spend 42?
Stop right there. What do you consider the major issue?
You just said it. We don't have no beds. The construction, have you been down there?
So
The
the question
whole-
is,
We gonna keep cutting you off. I'm not gonna stop.
the average length of stay is not the major issue. Is that what
I'm
I'm
done.
hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Dude, y'all understand? I'm done. Sure, you can speak to him.
To answer, the question that you asked, jail is just old and run down. First of all, you gotta look at it for what it is. It's old, we got one of the oldest jails in North Carolina. A lot of people have updated. And mostly they were very thorough. I know one of the things he told us was, when his inspector went out, he was appalled at the conditions. We have the state coming down, they're inspecting, and every year we flunk. Then there's always something new that needs to be done. We have been putting excess over and above the budget, and I guess Catherine can attest to that she's given a budget, but then throughout the year, the sheriff has been coming and asking for more money because this needs to be fixed and that needs to be fixed. She's on our part, we can't control the work. That's up to the sheriff to control the work that's done at the sheriff. The only thing we can do is provide the funding. So once that request for funding is submitted to the county manager and Ms. Bigelow, they review it to see whether or not it's feasible. They bring it to the board. And when, I asked Curtis when he came here, has there been anything he asked for that we haven't given? He said, no, we've given him what he's asked for. But in spite of the fact that we keep shoveling money over and over and over into jail, they're supposed to be fixing the problem that he says exists. These problems still exist. So, we're not talking about like a $5 million solve everything for the jail. No, we're talking about $38 just to renovate the jail. So if you're going to spend 30-something million to renovate a jail, why wouldn't you just build a new jail? Then you don't have to worry about this in 2 or 3 years. Because every year the sheriff keeps coming back for this, for that, for this, for that. And we've been just channeling money there. That money that should be designated for other projects, but we're still having to put it in this jail because he's on WRAL making complaints. We need a new jail or whatever. And then you have inmates, you have their relatives, and everybody's complaining about the condition of the jail. Then you have the nursing staff who don't want to work there because, according to rumor, they don't feel safe. So it's not just the inmates. We got to look at the overall picture. Some people are saying, I don't want to work at the jail because I don't feel safe as a guard to work there. It's not that they don't want to work with inmates, because a lot of them work in Soul City. They work in Granville County, they work in Franklin County, but they won't come to Vance County because they do not feel that same level of safety. So we need to build a facility or have a facility that's not only going to provide safety, it's going to have to be sanitary, it's going to have to be upkept, and it's going to have to be something that if we're going to funnel millions and millions and millions of dollars, we don't just want to put a Band-Aid on something. We want to build something that's going to be long-term. And if we can come out in the long, if we look at the perspective of the long term versus the short term channeling is almost the same amount of millions in it. We gotta, look at both scenarios to see what's gonna be more feasible, not only for the county, but the court system and also the inmates as well. Because we're trying to avoid certain liabilities that we may face. I went at the workshop that we just attended. One of the ladies was saying they actually, there was a drastic measure that was taken that then the county really was forced to take some action to try to mitigate what had been done. And we're gonna, I don't want us to end up in that situation. So realistically, we got to look at what we can do. It's long overdue. And I think people are gonna have to be willing to sit down at the table and discuss this. And when I say that, I mean law enforcement from different agencies, the sheriff, the district attorney's office, our board, the city, there has to be other people coming to the table because we have to reach a resolution that's going to benefit the whole county. And not like Sean said, just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And that's what we've been doing. We've been putting a Band-Aid, and then if we get a new jail, then all that money we funnel into the old jail is just wasted. It's gone down the drain because we are not using that. So, that's just my opinion.
5.3 that's the remodel, right?
Remodel of the existing
31
space.
million will be adding beds, right?
Pardon me?
The 31 million, because 31 million, to me, it gotta be
Right.
the remodeling of jail.
The 31 million includes the 5.3 to renovate the existing jail as well as add additional jail bed space. And then the 42 is the total independent new facility. And Madam Chair, if I can go back to Commissioner Taylor's question on the conclusions and recommendations that Mosley made. His conclusions and recommendations are really pointing toward a new jail, because when he says implement a classification program, he's talking about when a person comes into the jail, they're classified as either violent, nonviolent, sex offender, so on and so forth. And you try to put like with like, not have a nonviolent person with a murderer. But with your jail, the space is so tight and the beds are so limited, they're not able to implement that classification program.
Put Flint Hill in with West End, you put Happy Hill in with Mobile, and they the ones beefing, shooting, killing each other. Now you got them in the same cell.
Right.
Next thing you know, we getting videos and stabbing like we've been getting.
And that was one of the questions I did ask the former administrator, could they not separate, because I didn't think it was fair to take somebody, say for instance, for child support. Because you still have people who have a child support purge. So you take a person who's only down there, they're a law-abiding citizen or whatever, they just didn't pay the child support, but then you want to put them in the jail cell with a murderer. Then you got a vulnerable person and a person who's been classified as a violent offender. What do you think is going to happen? And that's basically, those are some of the things that's been happening. But, one of the things that the sheriff said he has been doing is he did try to have some of those individuals who did not have real serious offenses that they were facing to go ahead and try to get the DA to set a lower bond so they can get out, or at least transfer them to another facility, and so we were at one point where most of the people who were down in the jail were violent offenders, had been charged with murders and the like and other violent offenses. And a lot of people who say had misdemeanor charges, he had tried to get them out of the jail, period. But if you're not going to even have them coming up to court, then you just, stacking on top of stacking. Even if you classify, they're still being stacked on top of stacking. I think what was one guy been down there 7 years?
We've got too many murders, serious offenders right now to classify with the existing space we've got. That's the first thing that's got to be fixed.
Three
Is that
people in jail for
once you do that, you can do some classification.
50.
And plus, we're not even realizing this is just the cost of the jail. We haven't even talked about land. You gotta get right.
Come on,
You
that's
gotta,
it.
you gotta get land. So it's more than a $42 million project. You talking about land we gotta purchase. So it's a whole lot. Then we're gonna consider how much we're gonna raise our taxes to do this for our citizens. I mean, we got a whole lot we have to consider even and do. I know what we gotta do. But, and like I said, what needs to be done, but we gotta look at purchasing land. It's more than $42 million.
Correct.
There's a whole lot that's had to go into this decision making. So we got,
One thing that we've got to look at, if you decide today that you wanted to build a jail, it's probably gonna be 2 years before you break ground on
That's true.
And then 5 to
it,
build
and then
it.
5 years to build it. So you've got 7 years, before somebody's gonna occupy a jail. I mean, it's a long-term project.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have to spend some money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why we put it in here. for
And so we've got money, we're gonna have to spend, we're gonna have to make a plan to spend some money or move some people around or do whatever. So, you talk about throwing money away or whatever, we're gonna have to
We're gonna have to throw some money away.
put some money in to keep people safe right
Yeah.
now.
Maintenance.
with-
Thank
with
you.
maintenance. And I'd asked them at one time to give me some numbers from some other older jails. And that was about the time he was leaving, is about what their annual maintenance costs are of jails that are similar to ours.
Who's he?
Uh, yeah. He was working up some numbers and they get that before he left. So I mean, some things like that to see if the actual what was spent on the jail is consistent with jails like ours. Obviously, we've got that one wing that was built in the 50s that is not functional,
The whole bottom ain't functional.
So we're not.
It ain't functional at all.
but that's 20-some sales. So
8% of
Madam Chair. In the interest of time, we'll just bring this back
Back up.
to the next one and
8%
and I
tax.
just, for the Henry Dennis building and the Eden Johnson, I'm not asking for any money. I wanted just to
8%.
kind of take your temperature on whether or not we could potentially move some of the offices and departments that are currently in Henry Dennis building into potentially the county admin building or veteran services to county admin and elections potentially to the Eden Johnson wing to then free up Henry Dennis to potentially sell and use that money for other capital improvements. So we don't continue just to put money into Henry Dennis. I just kind of want to take your temperature. I don't,
I got a temperature for you.
Okay.
Where's the Henry Dennis? Because
It's
It's-
the old what, post
it's
office?
the old post-
Post office.
Post office, across the old building,
You know, the old post office, used to be the old post office.
across the old Leggett building.
But the what?
Okay, okay.
Captain, I think I missed, because we were talking about jail, then you went to summer. I think I missed the first part. What'd you say?
I just said in the interest of time, I'll bring it back
Okay.
up at our next work session, just to kind of
About the,
Jay,
about the jail.
oh, jail,
Just
okay.
bring back more information.
You were saying something about the Henry, that's what I missed, the Henry
Yes,
Dennis.
on the Henry Dennis building, just wanted to take your temperature about potentially selling it,
Okay,
and
and putting the
moving-
people where?
moving different departments that are in there to different areas
There
of
is,
the
okay,
county.
okay.
To potentially sell it and use that funding for something else.
So who in the veteran
Veteran.
services, the election, right?
Elections, juvenile.
Juvenile,
services,
okay.
Some youth.
You-
Henderson Parks, Henderson, Vance County
That's the-
Parks and Recreation, Youth Services.
Well, I'm for moving out of there.
okay, what,
Are-
So given that we need a new jail, there's no question about that. What would happen if we built a building to just house offenders who are low-risk offenders? And we built a facility that basically housed like a little hotel thing, 80 people or so, and all our low-cost offenders went into there. And we then keep the current jail for
Still don't do that.
murderous offenders and all that.
I think we're trying to get away from that right now because we're not gonna be here all night, but
Well, I'm just
that
trying
would
to come
double
up with
the, it
alternatives.
would double the administrative cost.
Yeah, you got an administrator, we got to hire the staff.
You'd have 2 facilities you're operating. I would recommend waiting to hear from the DA when he comes on the
Yeah,
5th.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Going back to the Eden Johnson campus, we've got Medicaid expansion, which is probably gonna happen. Increasing staffing needs. And until we can find out what those staffing needs and space needs are gonna be with the Medicaid expansion, I would hope that we would take any future moving in of any other organizations to that campus.
this is just conceptual. We're not talking about anything
Yeah.
that we're going to pursue. We just want to kind of put it on your radar. We have talked to the DSS director, Danita. She's on the wing that's the vacant wing, the last remaining wing out there. I think she's using about 3 classrooms about for
Yeah.
storage.
And then we could use a couple.
And she's basically, in terms of expansion area, that is all that she would really need to go into. The rest of it could be used for other county departments. You know, whether say Board of Elections, Veteran Services,
Would it
so
be
on.
beneficial?
Pardon me?
Would it be beneficial?
Well, it's beneficial if we could if we could sell the Henry Dennis building and not have the continual upkeep of that building and use any proceeds of that towards any other capital projects, then yes.
If
If
you could
that's
sell it for market value and not dump it,
exactly.
that building is worth millions.
So are we open to
Is where
potentially?
Dan?
Well,
That building's probably worth millions.
the question is that building on the National Historical Reference?
No,
Well, we'll bring this back again now that
Okay.
I didn't want to just drop everything on. One more thing, I have this that I want to put on your radar that we've been looking at is,
So,
oh, go ahead.
so we're not looking for any decision on the things she's passing out on E-Fleet.
While you passing this out, I got a question. How many different organizations are you planning on moving? that you Want to entertain the buildings?
To move into what building?
I don't know.
Just one.
Yeah.
Youth services is already in there.
Yeah. it's what they-
So that was on the CIP to fix the air conditioning in the gym
Uh-huh.
so that they could have their basketball games and use that area more efficiently because it's really hot, you know?
Dan,
So
what
youth would be there and I would just
talking
like,
about the E?
there's only veterans
What you talking about?
Yeah, veterans. you
and
got
election,
elections,
Coming all
child
up, they
protective
got-
service, or
Elections, you
State.
1, 2,
I'd move
3
three,
cleaning.
Here's-
we got 14 conversations.
four
going on. Let's make
departments
it.
out of it.
No,
Okay, move forward departments. How many rooms are available over there?
At Ian Johnson,
Yes.
there's a whole wing. We would only put
It'll work
one
out.
department
About
on there
another
because of parking and the type.
30,000 people
We
gonna
moved-
be eligible. for
I'd like to
Medicaid
move elections
state,
over there
Which is about
because
6,000
it's
in
a lot
Vance
of
County, I
states that
think.
already use the
Increasing
gym for
employees.
early voting.
So you'll have more
It's
staff.
right there. It just kind of makes sense. And then they can swing in and the parking would be for
And it ain't
getting
costing
out
us
the
nothing.
voting, you know, they have that new,
What expense will we have?
just to upfit that wing.
That's it.
What is this?
We
So
just had
this,
private conversation. What was it?
sir,
I was asking her,
About the Board of
how many
Elections.
rooms was at Eden Johnson available? She said a whole wing.
mhm,
I asked her, who we needed to move? She said child protection, veterans and elections.
yeah,
We already know that elections uses 3 rooms now.
yeah,
Two
I think there's like
offices in that
12
front office.
classrooms.
And then the veterans uses that big room over there. And I didn't even know child protection was in the building. So she said it was plenty of room on that one hall where everyone can.
And I would not advocate putting child protection at Eden Johnson and mixing DSS with any type of law enforcement at all. I would just want to move elections over
What would you
there.
do with child protection service?
We have another building over there that we potentially, this is just a conversation that we'd like to have.
That building where?
It's the state child protection, so it's 3 offices and there's plenty of room at the county admin building. That's just still,
I think Yolanda's sort of agreeing with you in terms
Office
not to
building, I'm
not to put the two
Down
together.
the other
right?
street.
Oh, we agreeing with you.
Yeah. but I don't want to say that's what we're definitely doing when we don't know.
I like to know all the options.
Well, I'll bring
You
back,
just opened up a lot for me.
I'll bring back more to lay out a better plan if everyone's willing to allow me to do that.
That's a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we renovated, the courthouse and the district attorney moved downstairs, they vacated several of the offices upstairs, did they not, or?
No, ma'am, they repurposed those and there's no space in the courtroom.
Okay, so cause I know they had, there was 3 on that corner. You had the major office for one of the.
That's
district
now the
attorney-
law library.
No, the law library is on the other
You're
side,
right,
in
you're
front,
right.
front of the courtroom. But on the opposite side, near where the judge's chambers is, on that back hallway was a big office. Then you had a little office where one of the DAs sat, and then right at the corner, when you come in, on the side door was the district attorney office. So I was just wondering, in terms of juvenile services, how many offices would they need? 3? And if those offices, if no one is actually occupying those offices, rather than storage or whatever, they're using it for, could not the juvenile services maybe be relocated? Because they're gonna be down, that's their
I
part of the
would love for
courthouse.
y'all to let me build a fire EMS 911,
Mhm,
move them out and have all of 911
mhm.
for a new entrance to the courtroom, for the attorney, for juvenile, all that. So,
Mhm.
but I just got the no from Dan, so we're gonna just move on to E-Fleet right now.
Let's move on to E-Fleet.
We're gonna
So-
move on to.
I think Kelly told us this meetings were gonna last an hour.
Yes, that's
We
what
have
I'm
we
trying
have
to.
10 minutes. So
Yeah.
let me open the door for Catherine on E-Fleet is a concept we want to pitch to you today. No decisions are needed, but we do want, if you find this appealing, we want to bring it back to you possibly in September. So Catherine,
So this is basically a fleet management program software. We all know the struggles that we've had over the last years with the sheriff's vehicles, all county vehicles, all of the departments that we need gas cards, we need maintenance programs, we need tracking programs, all of this. And after doing a lot of research, this is a full combination, and to not have growing government, as Commissioner Brummett does not like, this helps us staff, gives the current staff the ability to do what we need to, what we should be doing all along in, as far as fleet management. This allows us, if you look at this, I did some research on different companies. Sorry, that allowed us to do it. This one right here that I'd kind of like your consensus and blessing to move forward with is the one that does everything. Our gas pump at the jail right now, I don't know if any of y'all have ever witnessed anyone getting gas at the jail, but it takes someone about 30 minutes to pump their gas. And that's all county vehicles. They have to wait in line. It is $9,000, in their defense, it is $9,000 to fix. And I will not let them fix it because I think we should go to gas cards.
gas cards will allow you to get gas basically at almost any gas station. So if you're a deputy and you're the northern part of the county, the southern part of the county, you about out of gas, you got to drive all the way back into Henderson to gas back up and then go back out.
Yeah.
It's a very inefficient.
With a car,
Yeah.
it's just the gas,
Yes, absolutely. And we all, sir,
nothing else.
nothing else. You're only allowed to use it at certain stations. You have to enter your mileage. We currently use this with our ambulances and fire trucks. We've never had they'll actually integrate with, they actually use WEX fuel, which is the fuel card. It's much more secure than what we have now,
Wait a minute,
to be honest.
EMS, they use the same gas card
EMS uses WEX fuel, yes.
in the fire stations too?
The fire departments do as well.
So I was the other day, I was surprised. I saw, what is it, UPS at a service station using, I was shocked.
That's what this is. And there's all security measures to be able to even to have the card turn on that goes with this. So, and if someone's willing to lose their job over a tank of gas, it's going to happen, whether it's there or with this. This just helps our employees be more efficient.
Give
How much
me a,
money is it gonna save us?
Sir,
How much money is it gonna save us?
I'll get to that in a minute.
give me a 1 minute on the security measures. Give me a 1 minute scenario.
Each individual has to type in their own PIN number. Then they have to put in their mileage that's on the vehicle, and then it'll allow them to pump gas. That from there goes through that into the software program and tells you if it's any off anyway. So it'll link the person, you have your special PIN code. And then if your mileage is in there and it's way out of whack, it'll send an alert to someone.
We had this program, we've had it for probably, or they had it for
So what's the cost?
15 years.
What's the cost of this?
So let me get to the other ones. It'll have geotag so we can what is it called? A geotag on every car if we need to track it.
Tracking device.
Tracking device. I've already talked to the sheriff and the major and their fleet person, and they are completely on board, super excited about it. The management part of it, if you look in, we can go through this again, but these are all the other current counties that use them. I've talked to 3 of them. They all are very fond of them. They are our size. They couldn't afford an actual person for this job. So they went with this as well. Same situation we're in.
Who will monitor the camera? Who will monitor this?
Myself, the sheriff, or the sheriff's representatives, and probably the assistant. I mean, anybody who wants to be honest with you.
I mean, basically, it's that easy to monitor.
So they're saying, I
Okay.
have not bought it yet and, but I think it should be compared to what they've showed us. They will help us. There is a maintenance program with this as well that we can currently do inside. That's the action I'll be asking for at our next meeting. If we get the consensus, we can do this inside the maintenance program, and this is how they make some of their money. It's almost basically insurance for maintenance programs. It's currently the amount that it's gonna cost for our fleet. We already have it in our budget, so
And
this should, sir.
How much?
I've been asking that question. What is it
It's
called?
it's in our, it's each one is gonna be separated between each department. So the sheriff has $200,000. His is gonna be 150,000 of that.
Well, it's coming out of his budget.
Yes, and it's
Oh, okay.
already budgeted for this year. It is, the price of the program is already in our budget.
It's coming out of his.
Uh,
budget.
Yes, and then in the
want it.
future, if we would like to, another way this company makes their money is if they would help us buy and sell vehicles, they get them because they're affiliated with Enterprise, they get them in bulk. We would still get state contract, we would still get this, but they would get they'd get 3% off the price of a car. So if we were to buy $200,000 worth of cars, they get 3% of that, and that's how they make their money.
They get 3% off state contract. Do we get 3%? They had 3% state contract price.
Yes. Mhm. And then, but
But that's
that
what
is
same-
for,
So how much
Uh,
is the cost?
because-
Still trying to figure what
because
it-
we don't have to
50,000 in the.
have a person to do
sheriff's
it.
budget.
We're that 3%
Sheriff's budget.
provides us the software.
Gonna be a lot.
That
Exactly.
percent provides us their
Our budget.
ability to buy cars, that percentage of,
So
Gives
that's
us-
always also got us on like a maintenance program. This car's got 5,000 miles. It's time to get the oil
and
change.
they already have all of our local services on this negotiated maintenance rate. So they can go to Jernigan's for tires, they can go this, because right now I get a ticket and it says new tires for vehicle 53. Okay, I have no idea how to link those together. I mean, this is a
We-
full-time
You got-
job.
They really got time for.
Or I don't.
We don't know how many,
So this-
were there 1,000 miles on those tires or 30,000 miles on those tires?
I'm with it
I'll get
too.
a 50,000.
For the sheriff.
When I saw E-Fleet, I thought you were gonna tell us we need.
That's just for the show.
I'm excited.
I got some.
So, and then over time though, but this will help us maintain a newer, more effective, more efficient fleet.
It makes it simple, easy for you.
It does.
Okay.
But we do have the ability to pull out, like if we say, we don't
Yes.
want to put these cars, we won't send those to social services, we do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, oh yeah. If we surplus it, I still have to follow the same processes to bring it to you and all that stuff. So, but anyway, so there's that. So everybody, I
Okay.
can tell you more on,
We'll bring it back September if you're agreeable.
The questions that we had during the retreat was about land where the fleet, where the current cars could be kept so that they wouldn't be damaged like they were in the past.
Yeah.
Have you calculated even if we were to do this, how much more we'd have to spend to maybe have a facility where the cars can be kept so that these won't be damaged as well?
ma'am, I'm working with the sheriff's office on another project to bring back to the properties committee options of all different ways to handle that situation, whether we buy a building already built, or do we buy land and build a building? Do we buy a warehouse and redo the whole thing? We're working together with them to be able to bring back to the properties committee, and I anticipate being able to ask for that meeting in the October
Okay.
area
Okay.
to bring back those options. But this is one of those things that once we get it caught up and once we get nicer vehicles, it's just gonna
Yeah,
do
but we don't
nothing.
want to get nice vehicles and the
ma'am.
vast eat the wires like they did before.
Yes, ma'am.
Because the sheriff didn't
So-
have them parked in the same place.
But this
Yeah.
really is a full-time job for one person, so this would eliminate, yes, it might cost us a little bit, but it would eliminate a full position.
It doesn't come with fringe benefits and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Yes.
And hopefully over the life cycle of vehicles,
Yeah,
you're going to save money through the properly maintaining them and so
because I'm
forth.
bringing 12 at the next meeting.
So your last item on the agenda is the update on the Head Start wing for the Grow contract. We, in terms of Head Start wanting to acquire that space, we've met initially with DSS, with Danita DeVega, and the Senior Center Director discussed Head Start's desire. I think we worked out some misunderstandings of what Head Start was requesting. We then had a subsequent subsequent meeting with the Head Start officials. And at this point in time, the DSS and the senior center does not have a problem with them having the cafeteria if you were to lease it to them. So on your September 5th agenda, we've got the, we were going to put the Head Start on there as a contract for you to consider. Also, we have is the Grow, we did that last time, didn't we?
The grow is already.
Yeah, the Grow's done. Grow told us they would be out of the facility by September 5th by the time you meet. So that seems to be agreeable. Head Start has agreed to pay the same per square foot dollar cost they're currently paying in the Eaton Johnson wing that they're in right now.
Mhm. That sounds good. They need to- they
Is that
need to-
consistent with what Grow was paying?
Oh, do you remember?
That would make sense for them to have that kitchen. though.
Grow pays, no, Franklin Vance Warren, which is Head Start, pays $10 and Grow paid $7.50.
So they're actually paying, we'll
Mm.
get more revenue actually.
Sean and I was in a meeting on the other night in terms of Head Start, and that is a dire need of them in terms of having that kitchen
Yeah,
facility and
they
everything.
need that.
Because right now they have to, they are required to have meals at a certain temperature in terms of transport, and so it's a need.
Part of that Grow contract was they were supposed to upfit that kitchen and provide us with that equipment, which was not done.
Not
So
done.
that's
Okay.
per square foot,
Jail.
the per square foot may be different, but that's part of the additional consideration.
3 minutes after, it's time to go. Right, Kelly?
Okay,
sorry.
so
Thank y'all. All right.
we've gone over all of the things that's on our work session agenda, capital needs, E-fleet, and also the Head Start update. So does anyone have a motion in terms of this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made that we adjourn. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
No.